So the commercial internet is now, 25 years old? It's completely changed how we live, for sure. But has it actually transformed the way business works? Well, the answer might just surprise you. Today, we're going to dig into a deep analysis of the digital economy to see who's really winning, who's being left behind, and what the playbook for survival actually looks like.
Okay, so let's jump right into the central mystery here. I mean, think about it. For 25 years, we've had this insane explosion of incredible technology. So why, with all this innovation, has productivity growth in major economies actually slowed to a crawl? It's this massive paradox, right? The kind of thing that keeps economists and CEOs up at night.
And look, the answer to that puzzle, it's worth an absolute fortune. We're talking about something like $13 trillion that could be added to global GDP by 2030. That is the prize on the table for the companies and economies that can really figure out how to harness digitization, automation, and AI. So yeah, the stakes, they couldn't be higher.
So to really get what's going on, we first have to talk about this phenomenon, the Great Digital Stall.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting when you look at the actual numbers. So you can see here, right? A decade ago, in the US and major European economies, productivity growth was humming along at a healthy 2.4%. But then, look at that nosedive. Between 2010 and 2014, it just crashed to a measly 0.5%. So with all this amazing tech, the economic engine was sputtering.
What on earth is going on?
Well, a huge part of the answer lies right here, in what we call the digital gap. It turns out that, on average, most traditional companies have only tapped into about 25% of their actual digital potential. That means a whopping 75%, that big blue chunk you're looking at, is completely untapped potential. So, while everyone's talking about going digital, the reality is that only a tiny, tiny fraction are actually pulling it off. Okay, so this huge stall has created a massive opening and a totally new kind of competitive landscape. So let's meet the new bosses.
All right, so first up, you've got the ones everyone knows, right? The global digital superstars like Google and Amazon. But, and this is the really interesting part, there's another group emerging that's a bit more surprising. You see, within traditional industries, the top 10% of companies are morphing into these superstar incumbents. And get this, they're grabbing a mind-boggling 80% of all the digital revenue in their entire sector. They're just lapping the competition.
And then there's the other big threat. They aren't your typical competitors. We're talking about a whole new breed, the digital natives. These are startups, born and bred online, and they are swarming into every single industry with a completely different playbook. And make no mistake, these aren't just, annoying little startups anymore. They have absolutely reached a tipping point. I mean, look at this. In big sectors like retail and even pharmaceuticals, these digital natives are already pulling in over 70% of the total digital revenue. So the key takeaway here is pretty stark. In this new digital marketplace, it's the startups that are now calling the shots. Okay, so the picture's becoming pretty clear, right? The old guard, the incumbents, they're squeezed between their own slow progress, these superstar competitors, and now swarms of these digital natives. So what do? How do they survive? Let's break down the playbook.
All right, the path forward really boils down to 4 critical moves. First, incumbents have got to learn to be agile, to move like a startup. Second, they have to get in on the platform game, either build one or learn how to play on others. Third, and this one's huge, they need to master digital M&A. And finally, the toughest part, none of it means anything without flawless execution. Let's zoom in on that M&A piece for a second, because it's so important and often overlooked. The research is pretty clear. A massive 80% of a company's growth comes from just 2 things, the overall market growth and its M&A strategy. So if you're a company that's fallen behind, M&A isn't just an option, it's probably one of the most powerful tools you have to catch up fast. But here's the catch, and this chart just makes it painfully obvious. The digital natives, they're playing offense, and they're playing hard. They spend more than 15% of their market cap on digital deals, and the traditional incumbents, a measly 3%. So while the natives are out there using M&A like a weapon to build scale and buy new tech, most of the old guard, well, they're barely even in the game. And even if you nail the strategy, execution it's the final boss. It's the thing that trips everyone up. And the numbers here are, they're pretty sobering. A digital transformation is 5 times more likely to fail than it is to succeed, and only 1 in 10 actually ends up exceeding its profit goals. And why is it so hard?
Well, because true success means you have to master 5 key management themes all at the same time, from leadership and talent to just being agile. And honestly, very few companies can pull that off. So, okay, after 25 years of this, you might be thinking the race is pretty much over, right? The winners have been picked. But that's not the case at all. In fact, a new, even more powerful wave of tech is just arriving, and it's creating a whole new opportunity, a second chance, really, to win the next frontier. And that next frontier is, you guessed it, artificial intelligence. But you have to understand, this isn't some separate revolution. It's a massive wave that's building directly on top of the digital foundations laid over the last 25 years. And it is about to create an even bigger divide between the winners and literally everyone else. And this right here is the critical connection. You can't just decide one day, hey, let's do AI. Digitization is the absolute backbone of AI adoption. Think about it like this. Companies that have already kind of mastered that first digital wave, the ones getting half their sales online, they are 70% more likely to be investing seriously in AI. What this really means is that the winners of the last round don't just get a head start in this new race, it's like they're starting halfway to the finish line. And the penalty for being left behind? It is already absolutely staggering. Just take a look at this performance gap. In high tech, for example, the companies that aren't using AI are seeing digital cash flows that are a shocking 80% lower than their competitors who are. It's a 30% gap in financial services, 20% in retail. The cost of doing nothing isn't some fuzzy future problem anymore. It's a massive, real, and measurable disadvantage right now. So, here's the bottom line. The digital journey might be 25 years old, but in a lot of ways, with AI now entering the picture, the real race is just getting started. And that leaves one big question for every leader, every company, and really for all of us. Are you ready for what's coming next?